And there we go. That's the magic.
And we're on.
Yeah, so I've recently tried to simplify my gear here again so
That's
that,
good.
It's nice for being on the road.
Simple is good.
So that was an interesting ride this morning.
Yeah. Thanks for being brave and going out with me.
I love it, man. I realized it yesterday that we were going to go ride, and there's this slight bit of anxiety and nervousness about going because, look, I'm very aware of where I am as a cyclist. I know what my skill set is here, and I'm a C- cyclist is what I would give it. I've been consistent since I got back riding since the beginning of the year, doing 150 miles a week, no matter what,
That's awesome.
as well as my regular lifting
Yeah.
and training. And so the lungs are there.
Yeah.
It's just the rest of the body keeping up.
Yeah, well, and you're at altitude. Right now we're at about 6,000 feet, and we rode up to nearly 8 today.
Slightly different than St. Louis.
Yeah. Well, and if I went into your world to go move heavy objects around, I would be intimidated too.
Of course, right? Of course there's going to be that carryover of what beats you up. And
I think it's good, though. I appreciate athletes that will play in other realms. I think it's just good, for your own health and diversity as a human specimen. I think it's great to be able to play and do different sports and do different things.
well, I think so many of us, especially once we've been bitten by a bug and then find a thing that we enjoy and good at, that you end up with this such a specific focus for a period of time that once you get on the back side of that, that was never supposed to be long-term plan.
Yeah.
You can't burn that hard
Yeah.
at one thing. And so now that I'm on the back side of it and I still want to be active and physical, I just want to find activities I enjoy doing, which I've narrowed it down that it's essentially various forms of hiking that I like, whether it's on the bike or it's actual hiking or I'm in the truck doing the overlanding type thing. And
Yeah.
I just want to be outside.
Yeah, it's exploring. I mean, I feel that way too. People have asked. I've done a lot of different sports over, more 3.5, 4 decades of being an athlete, but there's a common theme is that I just like to go exploring, and same as a little kid in Illinois, I would camp out in the backyard and
Where in Illinois?
Downers Grove, a suburbs of Chicago.
All right.
And so I wanted to camp out. I wanted to be outside, and that hasn't changed. Even I'm 51 now. And all my different sports, people are like, why did you do all these different sports? I'm like, well, there's a theme. I just wanted to go see stuff. Like you said, I want to go exploring outside. And whether it's rock climbing or paddling or cycling, they all have served the same purpose for me.
So, quick rundown. What are all the disciplines, and let's go chronologically.
Well, I started my athletic career in running in high school. I was joined the cross-country running team and the track team and quickly found, I liked cross-country a lot better because it was grassy, every course was a little different, whereas track, you're very, very predictable, you're running around in circles, exactly, I was more the person who wanted to look at the birds and the trees and
Perfect.
so yeah, I was an endurance runner, and that stayed with me through college, and then I found rock climbing was the next sort of foray, and which was interesting because I was living in Chicago and I was working in the health club industry. I had a marketing degree and kinesiology background and wanted to be in sports, and I started working at this health club that had a really 100-foot high rock climbing wall.
Oh.
And so I got into rock climbing, totally unexpected, and fell in love with that, and then decided I needed to leave the Midwest because it was a little too flat, and that's when I the first time I headed and started living in my car and being a dirtbag climber and kind of driving around, and ended up in California opening a series of rock climbing gyms.
Wow.
And then the next sport foray was adventure racing, which Eco Challenge and that stuff I did for 10 years.
When I had the bike shop back in 2005, I did a handful of adventure races. Really odd team. Mm-hmm. So it was myself, my bike shop partner Bill, and Bill's built for it. He's 5'5", 145 pounds. Mm-hmm. And then my other teammate was my brother, who's I'm the runt of the litter.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, we're both actually big. So I'm down about 60 pounds from competitive weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so Andy's 6'5", 330, was an offensive lineman in the NFL. So the two of us on an adventure race team together.
Dang, the amount of food you had to carry, bro.
Right. Well, we're doing sprints. I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't doing any big overnight or any of those type of things. So, but anytime there was a run, like, we're just looking at each other like, what are we doing here? And if there was any part we found on a trail that had an out and back for the run, Bill just went and we waited and tried to catch our breath.
Oh, my gosh. So you're a cheater. All
Yeah.
right. So, well, you know.
It's true.
Yeah.
It was the only way not to die.
Those were cool events, though. I mean, I was paddling at the time as well, outrigger canoeing, and that's how we have some mutual friends, Kelly and Julie at Starrett. But yeah, adventure racing came into my life through the climbing gym because those teams they had to be co-ed, and so you needed women and men on the team. So that usually meant one token female.
Have the female, right.
And some people came into the climbing gym and like, we need a female for this thing we're doing that's running and biking and navigation and paddling. And since you paddle and climb, like, you're like the best person we could find. And so I was like, I didn't know what it was, but I'm like, all right, I'll go try it. And it was a 24-hour race.
What was your first?
Yeah, my first was a 24-hour race, and then that really exploded into a 10-year career of doing multi-day expedition racing, which was around the world, 7 to 10 days, very little sleep, and in teams. And so I got good at navigation. I got good at, running, biking, climbing, basically jack of all trades, and really got to see the world in such an amazing way through adventure racing.
It's almost like with the Highland Games, it's such a weird loophole of sports that, coming out of track and field, I wasn't good enough to pretend I'm chasing the Olympics and the shot put or anything like that. So once I got into the Highland Games after a couple of years of strongman and powerlifting, I was like, wait a second. They pay for us to travel. Mm-hmm. There's prize money every week. It's not a ton, but I had a real job.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is a great hobby.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I did with adventure racing. It was the way that I saw the world, and I got to travel, and I wouldn't have been able to afford to do that.
Right.
And go to Fiji and go to New Zealand and go to South Africa. Like, I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I was really paying for it with my blood, sweat, and tears, to be honest with you.
Sounds like an easy exchange for me, right? I dig it. And so Eco Challenge, adventure racing, and then...
Yeah, adventure racing. Rock climbing was in there. Obviously, it was a big part of it. Whitewater. I was on the U.S. Women's Whitewater Raft team for a while. Cross-country skiing once I moved out here to Idaho, and eventually found cycling, which has become, for the last 15 years, really become my primary sport because it's such a great tool for exploring and going places. And, it takes so many shapes. You can do a 1 hour, 1 hour ride, or you can do a 7-day bike expedition. Which
totally
is,
different ballgame.
Yeah. And so I feel like my adventure racing and that expedition has really, and cycling have really met. And so, I've raced 24-hour mountain bike racing for a bunch, some world championships there, 100-mile races, stage races. But now I feel like I've come full circle. I'm doing a lot of bike expeditions and self-supported bike packing, which feels like adventure racing, and all that navigation and all that sort of like sleeping on the ground and taking care of yourself is all coming back to me.
Well, there's two that you've done that I followed that I'm really just in awe of. One is you riding your bike down Kilimanjaro. So,
and up.
So hiking and carrying a bike up Kilimanjaro. Honestly, watching you do that was the only thing that gave me this idea of like, I think I could do Kilimanjaro. And I just mean survive the hike and get to the top.
Yeah.
I'm like, if she can carry a bike and it's rideable down,
if I can carry a bike, you can carry your big old shoulders and your body up there.
Me.
Yeah.
with help of those guys that just
it was a really cool expedition. And the porters, and part of the economic system of going to Kilimanjaro, you're required to have a porter and a guide.
Right.
And it's cool because they're singing and they know the route, but I was like, I don't need a guide. I don't need a porter. And they're like, this is how it works. And so
I would
every
never
day.
think not having those guys, man.
Well,
Having a
they
Sherpa
want
is the key.
And they're like, Rebecca, we'll carry your bike. We'll carry your bike. And I was like, no, like
this is part
I
of
need to do it. I need to carry it. And they're like, why? They just couldn't understand that part.
Also, at some point for them, this is their job.
Yeah, and I was like, look, I'll pay you the same.
Yeah.
We're a team, but I'm going to carry my bike. And they kept every day like, can we carry your bike today?
Yeah,
I'm like,
course.
no. And then we got to the top and they're like, what about now? I'm like, no, now I'm going to ride it.
How's that ride down?
It was cool. It was such a cool experience, and just kind of the culture of being there and you know, I mean, yeah, it's one of the highest peaks it's the highest peak on the continent, and it was really special. And it was part of a fundraising trip that we were raising money for World Bicycle Relief that provides bikes for school kids in Africa. And so
that's awesome.
we were raising the amount of the height of Kilimanjaro, raising, you know, money to give bikes to kids in schools to get back and forth to school in rural Africa. And so after we summited, we got to go and meet some villagers and go spend time with them and ride bikes with them. And so it was the first trip that I did that had a really big personal goal, you know, to climb Kilimanjaro with your bike. But the second part of it was, you know, giving the gift of bikes to somebody else.
Yeah, this nice philanthropic.
Yeah, it was
side of
amazing.
It, right?
It was so amazing.
What a cool, you know, double thing that you get to do.
It was, and I feel a lot of my expeditions now have taken that form, you know, and I have a foundation, Be Good Foundation, and the mission statement is to use bikes as a catalyst for healing, empowerment, and evolution. And so, you know, the bike has given me so many gifts, and it heals, and spreading that around is really important to me. So a lot of my ride projects have the Be Good Foundation aspect to it, and the foundation is named, it's in my dad's honor. And another big ride I did was on the Ho Chi Minh Trail to go find the place where he died. He was a pilot in the Vietnam War, and he never came home. Wow. So I did a big ride, you know, combining my sort of bike expedition, a 1,200-mile ride, and went to the place where he died. And he, all of his letters home, he signed with the words, "Be good." And so I came home from that going, you know, I'm gonna use my bike for more. And that's when I launched the foundation, and that was 5 years ago. And it's really shaped my cycling and my expeditions with realizing, you know, like I said, the bike has been such a gift. Sports and outdoors are such a gift, and to be able to share that is really important to me.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I mean, you know, I love that there is this big overarching, like I said, philanthropic goal of how to share that message and help get things out. But there's also this side of, this is a thing I need to do.
I feel like my dad gave me instructions. And when I got there and I finally heard his words, "Be good," and was, you know, I was, that ride, the thing that was the most shocking to me was finding out that there's a ton of unexploded ordnance and bombs still left from the Vietnam War.
It's a lot of places. It's the same as
everywhere.
A lot through Europe, too, because, I mean,
Right.
World War I.
Exactly. And I had no idea. And
The
these
shelling.
are still killing people.
Yeah.
Wars that ended 50 years ago are still killing people. And I really do feel like that message was from my dad of, like, you know, he wasn't happy to be dropping bombs in the war. And I feel like he brought me there to be like, you know what, this is still a problem, and you can help with it. So that was the impetus to launch the Be Good Foundation. And we do cleanup in Laos along the Ho Chi Minh Trail through Mines Advisory Group. You know, it's part of the mission of the foundation.
Yeah, on my on my travel list is definitely getting to Vietnam, Laos, those places, and getting a motorcycle and
it's a beautiful place to explore. I mean, Southeast Asia is amazing. I mean, I've gone back every year.
Really?
And I take mountain bike groups back, you know, when we can travel again. But yeah, I've gone back. That place is just, it's pretty special.
So
and
just
it's
a ride, people could sign up. Like if I wanted to come with,
you apply, you know, it's an application process to make sure, because it is a bike expedition,
Yeah.
you know, and I have to, and it's very, very remote. But yeah, people can apply, and I take 12 people. I've taken, you know, 4 groups back since the first time I went there. So
Very, very cool. Do you do it just through Be Good, or is it? I know REI does some trips like that.
Yeah, it's my own thing. It's and it's on sections of the trail that I did, and we did a film called Blood Road on this bike adventure of me.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on iTunes and Red Bull TV and Amazon Prime. And it's a feature-length documentary. It won an Emmy Award.
Wow.
And so that really
cool,
tells
man.
the story of me doing that ride, finding my dad. But whether you're a cyclist or not, it's great footage of just seeing what it would be like to explore, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia on two wheels, a motorcycle or a bike.
Now, most of that ride, I mean, a bit of everything, single track, a bit of gravel.
Everything, yeah. Jungle. We had machetes. We had a machete through some of the jungle, and but yeah, jungle, single track, dirt roads. And the Ho Chi Minh Trail. It's a network of trails, and it goes from Hanoi in the north all the way down to Ho Chi Minh City, and so you start in these very, very urban environments with billions
of people going everywhere.
That was the most scared I was actually at the beginning and the end in the cities, because out in the woods I feel I've got more experience. I'm a bit more comfortable, but in the cities,
well, the woods,
it's crazy.
I mean, you've done enough now. Nature's a bit nature. You're very comfortable there, but the rules in big cities like that, especially Southeast Asia, this is not the U.S.
Yeah, and
traffic laws are just
there are no traffic laws. You really are kind of a fish and flowing with water. If anybody's been over there, you really just try to not make any abrupt moves. But
don't cause problems.
Not turn signals. There's not really any of that or structure to. There is a structure to it. It's just different than
here.
The U.S. type of structure of rules and things, which is one of the great parts, as you know, about traveling, is you expand your horizons when you travel.
It's that shift of perspective.
Yeah,
and realize
absolutely.
like recently, one of the shifts of perspective like I've had and kind of laughing about was discussing history with a buddy of mine who's a teacher in the UK. And so, I had said something about, just the American Revolution. He's like, well, we really don't cover it much in school. And I was like, He's like, yeah, we just refer to it as a colonial revolt.
Yeah.
And we cover it. Like, they went over, and then we decided not to really do much about it.
I had the same experience on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I rode with a Vietnamese woman as my teammate, and her father had been in the war on the other side, obviously. And, they call it the American War. They don't call it the Vietnam War.
Of course they have different names for it, right?
And they have what they learned in school, she and I would talk about it, and I was like, oh, that's what you learned? Well, I didn't learn it that way. And it was just a very interesting opening of my eyes and my heart of what we've been fed through media, or our books and our teachings are quite different than...
everything from Columbus down to, what we did with Native Americans and... Yeah, the U.S. is, especially our generations growing up without as much information, it's just easier to pass stuff along as the U.S. is this great emancipator and home of freedom, and we're the good guys.
Well, a lot of this is coming to the surface right now. It's very relevant that, the truth is coming out about a lot of things that have been wrong in our society for too many years.
For a long time. And I grew up in Louisiana, so my take on Black Lives Matter and coming from the South has been a completely different thing and experience than most people have. As far as I grew up around racism for the sake of just racism.
Yeah.
And it's a really weird thing. And the more I traveled, the more experience, the more teams I got to be part of. I'm glad that I got out of that. But I think about it with my parents born in Sulphur, Louisiana, a small town almost on the Gulf near Texas of 25,000 people, not really diverse. And, you don't move. You don't, all your friends are from there and grew up there. Where do you get that perspective shift? I don't, my parents didn't have a Kelly and Juliet to call on or conversations like this with people who've been on every continent. And so, I just want to share as much perspective to people.
Yeah. I think that's why storytelling is important, and, educating and reading, and especially, if we can't get around and travel as much as we used to in the past, we're going to have to learn about other people and other cultures and other stories through media.
Right. What about, so of all the travels, I also saw you did the Iditarod this year. How was that?
I can hands down say that was the hardest expedition I've ever done. Just because of the cold factor. And so it's, I did the short version, which is 350 miles on the historic Iditarod Trail. And there's a 1,000-mile version that's the full length. And most people have heard of the dog race,
right.
That's historically been going on. And it's on the same trail as the dog race
and this
is
is
on.
in Alaska, or is it in northern Canada?
It's in Alaska.
Okay.
And it is in the middle of winter in Alaska. And the human-powered version of it is you bike, ski, or foot on the Iditarod Trail. And it's extremely remote. Obviously extremely cold temperatures and conditions. I mean, it's minus 40 regularly there.
So is that a self-supported 325?
Yes. So it's self-supported. There are a couple little remote cabins along the way. You mail your food, 2 food drops of 5 pounds each. You mail them ahead of time.
This isn't going to work out for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's you really are calculating the food, the equipment, the fuel for a stove, the batteries to keep your lights going, and no one's coming to get you.
And nothing works in that temperature.
Exactly. I mean, that's even just operating a zipper in that temperature, or taking your hands out of your gloves for a minute. So the commitment level, it's the most committing thing I've ever done in my life. There is no room for error.
Whoa.
And I mean, I've done hard stuff. It's like, oh, this is hard. But that is hard, and you can't make a mistake, and no one's coming to get you.
Now, with everything you've done, in moments like that, are you still does fear still show up? Of like, oh,
yes.
Man.
I mean, I can honestly say I was primally, to my core, afraid of freezing to death, and of making a mistake, or you step through the ice and your foot gets wet. You might lose your foot. And so yeah, there is definitely fear of, don't mess this up. It's up to you. Nobody else is coming.
Is it just weigh the risk to reward? And
to me, people, not everybody wants to do that, you know. But for me, I realized I hadn't committed to something on that kind of level that really did scare me, probably in 10 years since I riverboarded the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Basically a boogie board, the Grand Canyon.
Now that you're saying that too. And
that really scared me too, because of the consequence of the environment that you're in.
So when we did the 2 weeks on the Grand Canyon with the trip we were with, and with such an incredible group of these women that you all know, and you actually were
Julie
on teams
Munger
with,
swam the Grand. She was on our little team that swam the Grand Canyon. There were 3 of us.
Was her partner?
And Kelly Califatich and Julie Munger and I were the 3 that swam the Grand Canyon.
Julie's, man, such a stud. Watching her navigate that boat.
She's my hero.
So finesse.
Yeah.
I loved, of all the stuff that we had on the river, either the duckies or the big boats or the riverboard. The riverboards weren't buoyant enough for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
I'm just drowning. They're like, oh, get on top. I'm like, none of this is working. Everyone's having fun. I'm not having fun.
I'm just sinking. You
there's
needed
no
a
control
double wide.
whatsoever. And but the big boat I really liked.
Yeah.
I liked that. Maybe I've also got a different set of tools to power it than she does.
Yeah.
Because I can just be a gorilla if I want to just push forward.
Yeah.
Watch them spin it and get into position so that they can use leverage and drive backwards and then put it exactly where they want was always just so cool to watch.
It's so cool to watch. I mean, she's truly gifted. She's the most amazing person on the water I've ever seen.
Amazing people. I got to stay at their house for a little bit in Truckee. Last year I was up there for some podcasts, and so stayed there and watched the dogs for them.
Oh, cool.
Out, so,
well, Julie Munger, she's the one who convinced me to riverboard the Grand Canyon in winter. It took us a month. Now,
is the water what's the difference in water in the winter?
The water's higher in winter. Okay. It's much colder.
But higher's better?
It's good because you're moving faster. There's more flow. There's less flat water.
Less over in the. I mean, would.
And some
More
of the
cushion
holes in
through
the
the
rocks
holes,
are
right?
covered. Yeah, I mean, it's big water, which is scary when you're at eye level on a riverboard, but it covers up a lot of the dangerous holes and some of that stuff. And really, I think they issued us a permit in winter because they didn't think we would take it. You know, they didn't want us to go.
Perfect.
The Park Service didn't want us to do it. And
Oh, man.
Julie spent 10 years getting that permit.
Whoa.
Fighting for it because, you know, she wanted to do it. And
The more I hear that, the more I'm so happy that we took that trip. And it was a trip that we took. My ex-wife was with us, and it was one of those of like, can we currently afford this trip right now? And it was like, we just have to do this.
yeah.
Especially a hand-picked trip with
Especially
Kelly
with
and
her
Juliet
and, yeah,
and
that group of people.
It'll never be this good again.
And the canyon's so special. I mean, it's so rare for you know, to be able to fully escape and immerse. And you go down in there and you're in another world.
Dude, leaving your phone behind for
Yeah.
2 weeks.
How cool is that?
It was great. It was great. And then like we talked about on the ride this morning, that feeling of like, I haven't been inside a place in 2 weeks. Like in a house, in a car, in a structure.
Yeah.
Other than my tent. And honestly, the tents, I don't know how they developed the technology on those tents that somehow the screens can stop any wind from getting into your tent and cooling you down, but dust can still get, so the sand can still get through it.
It's that's
It's amazing.
technology.
It's amazing
yeah,
technology.
I mean, if I do believe the outdoors is very healing. I mean, it's why I live in Idaho, and you know, I wish more people had access to be outside because I really do believe nature is therapy, and protecting open spaces is really important.
I can see the next 3 to 5 years things migrating to this area of the country, whether it's here or Montana. Missoula looks nice. For me, it's like having an airport within an hour.
Yeah.
And then outside of that.
Yeah.
And I like affordability too. There's a price range that, like, my income's not going to change based on moving since everything's online. But I also don't want to live toward the top of my means because then I don't have any freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and the freedom for me is by far the biggest.
Yeah.
I tell that to people, like, what are your overall goals? And for me, it's like, I want to spend as many days as I have left doing whatever the fuck I want.
Mm-hmm. That's a good goal.
That's it. Like,
That's
I want to do the
awesome
things
goal.
I want to every day. You know, not out of obligation and not out of I had to.
Yeah, I mean, that is freedom. A lot of people don't have that kind of, you know, freedom or financial freedom, and, you know, work is very real. And right now, you know, there's a lot of people out of work, and
yeah, it's taking creativity on my end too, you know, to figure
Yeah.
out how you keep things going, whether that's, you know, pushing the podcast or what other small avenues we've been able to create and provide service for people through different training programs or anything else.
yeah.
And so you were saying that you've got training programs for cycling.
I'm just starting to, typically, you know, I've had to pivot my business a little bit. Typically, Labor Day weekend, the first weekend of September, I host a big ride here called Rebecca's Private Idaho. It has 1,500 riders, and people come for, you know, a week with their families. Obviously, this year in 2020, we're not having.
Right.
I'm not bringing everybody here to Idaho, and so I've pivoted, and I've learned from, you know, people like Kelly at the Ready State, of can I meet people's needs and help people in a different way. And I started thinking about, why do people go to bike events, and why do they, you know, why do they need to commit to a goal and train for a goal, and can I still meet that need for people in a different format? And so what has started today is basically redefined version of Rebecca's Private Idaho, and it's really starting today. It's a whole online training, motivation, wellness, and I'm bringing in people like Kelly. You know, basically,
Sure.
as a pro athlete, I have access to a lot of great things.
Same way I feel about
Yeah, and
doing the podcast.
So I'll bring in all my friends, my community, and kind of curate, you know, we have it basically from now until September 7th as a group to train together, set a goal at the end of it. People will execute their ride, not here in Idaho, but wherever they are. And so that is a new format for me. And but it's exciting. I feel like what, you know, events might be canceled, but what's not canceled is people's need for community and connection and learning and bettering themselves. And it is also my biggest fundraising event typically for the Be Good Foundation. And so I didn't want to give up on all of that. And so I didn't cancel Private Idaho. I just made it something different.
Well, and you had the Giddy Up Challenge recently, too.
We had that as like a template. And when I saw what happened with that, with 11 countries participating, and we raised $130,000 for COVID relief. So I was like, okay, I can meet people where they are. And like you said, be in service and give back. And use the, use the platform and all the people and all the tools that I have access to as a pro. I'm basically making that available for the average cyclist. So I'm super excited. Today we did my FTP test because that's on the training program.
Somehow you managed a 5-minute up test and rode down, and then a 20-minute up test and rode down, and passed me on both. I eventually ground it down to get there, so I'm happy with it.
Well, like I said, if I came to your world and we were moving heavy things, I would expect you to surpass me as well.
But one of those things I love as an athlete is I love seeing like the caliber that level can perform at. Like there's something special about it when you see how easy they make it look, and just
it wasn't easy.
What 20 years of building an engine does.
Yeah.
Versus, I'm so new into anything considered an endurance sport, which I'm really enjoying because it's so different for me.
That's cool.
Everything I've ever done has been 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Tops.
Yeah.
And so the idea of switching gears to, this long stuff and doing it in the desert last year with the group that we did the HVIII Trail, there was something different mentality-wise that I've never had to access of just like, all you have to do is not stop. The only way this fails is quit. Mm-hmm. Like, as long as we're moving, whether it's walking or we're fine.
I was thinking about my coach has a quote, and you just kind of nailed it. He basically says to me, there is no failure. There's only quitting.
Right.
And so, even if you don't like your numbers or you didn't go as fast as you wanted to go, you really don't fail unless you actually just stop.
Just hang it up, which is such a different thing for me. Now, man, I noticed once I kind of got through this window of being comfortable to get 100 miles a week pretty comfortably, even if it's like, I only got 2 rides in, I can still gut it out.
Yeah.
That's built such an engine that cycling has become so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, anything new, when you start it, it hurts, it's painful,
It's supposed to.
It's because your body's like, what are you doing to me? Like when I get back to like foam rolling my IT bands, that doesn't feel good. But then after you do it a few times, it's like, okay.
Okay.
You
this
adapt
is what we're
to
doing
it.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's neat that the body has the ability to change that much and to be able to say, okay, so this is what the next thing is. That's fine.
It's pretty cool.
We'll pivot.
I kind of on the flip side, there's so many cyclists and so many endurance athletes that don't spend any time doing strength training. And I get asked all the time, like, oh, do you go to the gym? Like, for a cyclist, I have bigger arms and shoulders, and people are like, I'm like, well, I was a paddler, I was a climber, I chop wood here at home, I lift rocks when I'm on my trail runs. I was telling you about that.
That's awesome.
But I think it's so important just kind of for your wellness as a human being to spend time in the aerobic space, but also spend time in the strength space.
Well, no matter what your goal is, and this is how I try to say it to people, is like, so if I took everything about you and kept it the same as a cyclist, but I made you 10% stronger, do you think you're a better cyclist?
Yeah.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be so far toward the end of that spectrum. Like, look, we all know that point of potential we hit as an athlete where, for me with throwing, it becomes strength, technique, and speed. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes, of those 3, maximizing all 3 at the same time. Yeah. But there comes a point where, okay, if I spend too long getting strong, I get slower.
Yeah.
And if I spend too long out in the field working on technique, I get weaker. Mm-hmm. And so I can push 2 pretty well at any given time. The third one becomes tricky.
Yeah, there is always something that we need to spend a little more time on, whether it's stretching, whether it's strength, whether it's your nutrition. There's always kind of this spectrum. Nobody's perfect every day. You know, I have kind of an 80% rule. If you're 80%, 100% of the time, that's pretty good.
That's how I feel basically with diet.
Yeah.
Is nutrition wise, if 90% of my meals can be fuel and what they're supposed to be, then I've got room to fuck off.
Yeah.
I don't have to bail out if we're going somewhere and it's a meal that I really want to share that's an experience. You know, there's a difference between meals that are experiences and meals that are fuel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I try to make that decision now of like, even if I'm going out with a group, are we going for the food or am I going for the company? If I'm going for the company, eat the best thing I can.
Yeah, yeah. You make choices.
But if we're going somewhere, it's like, man, you can't believe this place makes this incredible pasta.
Yeah.
I don't eat pasta very often,
Yeah.
but okay.
I'll do it.
I'm not going to hear about it.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say it was great.
What are you cooking out while you're camping and stuff?
We've been really lucky with food sponsors. Stay Classy Meats send us food, and so they send meat for us, and then another company, Eat Right Foods, sends like pre-made meals.
Oh, wow.
And so we just have them drop shipped to wherever we're at if we know we'll be there for a couple days.
Oh, that's cool. So you just like pick up deliveries along the way?
Along the way.
Right.
Same type of thing. So ours are coming in a 30-pound box of meat, not a 5 that I'm trying to be calorically dense on.
Yeah. I mean, packing the food for Alaska was really hard. You're like, I get 2 5-pound drops and what you're carrying. And then, like I said, there's a few stops along the way, but you're calculating calories. And
peanut butter? Do you just send the most calorically dense?
I mean, I made a lot of my own food, and that's exactly right. You know, the weight per calories and what nutrients are going to be in it. And so I did make, you know, a lot of little like nut butter balls and dates are pretty good and they hold things together.
Dried fruit, dried mango, just basically pure sugar.
Yeah, and I made pounds and pounds of bacon. That is a very lightweight, high calorie.
Yeah, I mean, if you've gotten your body to the point that it'll use fat for a fuel, it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I did a few years of pretty hard keto is what kind of helped get the weight down, and then also helped with a ton of inflammation overall. But most meals for us, I mean, we'll buy instant rice, cook it, and then we mix in ground meat or salmon into the rice and just make a big bowl. Yeah. I couldn't be any happier eating that way. My body digests it well. I ate a lot of rice
and eggs. That's kind of my standby. Rice, eggs, and avocado are pretty. That's my race breakfast usually if I'm racing. That's kind of.
You got great fat, a carbohydrate. Yeah. It's easy to digest. It's not going to spike insulin.
It tastes really good.
And it's great. And it's a thing you don't hate eating.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the key, right? I'm noticing, so you've got the Nepalese or Nepal, is that correct? The prayer flags.
Yeah, some Tibetan prayer flags. That's a friend of mine who's a mountain guide. He was in Nepal earlier and brought those home. But yeah, I definitely and spending time in Southeast Asia, I resonate with sort of the Buddhist traditions and thoughts, and, you know, I wouldn't call myself a religious person.
Same.
I grew up Protestant, you know, and we went to church, but I really feel like just kind of the mindset and of the Buddhist tradition resonates with me a lot. And in my travels, I feel like a calmness in those kinds of places and with those people.
You know, I'm far from religious or any sector, but the idea of reincarnation in Buddhism I like, and as much as I try to wrap my heads around a thing logically, it makes sense. It's like I know that there's instincts and things that have been passed on from whatever former generations and those type of things, and so I also know that I was born once. And so who's to say that this wasn't the first, you know, that this was the first run? You know, that makes more sense to me than a place in the clouds.
Yeah, where there's a gate.
Yeah. American version of heaven is not my cup of tea. But
yeah, we just don't know. But I think, I mean, it's just like travel or spending time in other cultures. You learn from what other people's experiences are, and
you're allowed to pick and choose.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to just all be dogmatic into one thing. Like, you're allowed to say, like, I really like this idea. I can apply that philosophy, and things go well.
I had the honor of marrying a couple of my friends earlier this year, right down by the river where we live. And so I had to I got ordained online.
Yes, I've done the same. I've done 2.
I'm like, how do I plan a wedding ceremony?
I've done 3.
That's awesome. But I basically just I took some traditions from Laos because I spent time there, and some Jewish traditions. And what else did I take? I mean, I basically just did this hodgepodge, Native American, and just made up a bunch of stuff. But what I realize is, all the religions, they're almost all saying the same thing.
Yes.
Just in a different language or a different way.
The 80% big picture.
Yeah.
To me, it gets really tricky when people want to take something like the Bible as a textbook.
Mm-hmm.
If we can look at it as symbolism and look at it as the bigger picture and
mm-hmm.
the meanings and the stories, I'm on board.
Yeah.
It's as soon as someone's like, well, Earth is 6,000 years old, I'm like, we don't have a lot else to talk about. I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Have you been to Nepal?
I have. Yeah, I got to do a really amazing adventure race there. That was just really incredible experience.
Any chance up to base camp or?
I haven't gone to base camp. No. I went to Lhasa, which was where the Dalai Lama's former home is. And yeah, really cool. Spent a lot of time there and up to pretty high elevations of 18,500 feet is the highest.
Kilimanjaro is 19?
Kilimanjaro is 19.2. And so
and then there's the one in the Andes that's about the same, right? In Chile?
Yes, and Kilimanjaro was the highest I've been, and before that it was 18. But no, I haven't been to Everest Base Camp before. Have you been there?
No. I haven't been to Nepal yet. There are things I will see.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll see base camp. I'm a little mixed on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of gross.
I will tell you, there's so many beautiful mountains in Nepal that
going to base camp is essentially being able to say I went to base camp.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool to see Everest, but there's plenty of places you can see Everest.
You can see Everest from other places.
Right.
Yeah.
The Everest thing is a little odd, right? Because it's become such a. Those pictures of essentially there being a 500-person queue to wait in line to get to the top. That steals a little bit of that solidarity from me.
Yeah, I love the mountains, but I also had never had the interest in climbing Everest. One, because I wouldn't want to have to use oxygen, and I feel like
people do it without.
I know. And 18, 19, I feel like that's pretty good getting up there.
Right.
Right. That's high enough.
You don't need to switch it to 30,000.
I don't know. Yeah, that's just an insane place. But
it's
probably some of those people would never want to go to Alaska in the middle of winter in minus 20 to minus 40 degree temperatures. So
that's pretty fair. That's. Of all the places you've been fortunate enough to go, anywhere outside of the U.S. that's resonated hard enough you thought about leaving?
I really love Idaho. It really does speak to me. But New Zealand felt like a really cool place. I could see living and being in the South Island of New Zealand. One, it was the people are just really friendly. Kiwis are amazing.
Islanders have a different cut to them.
Yeah.
My main experience is Iceland. I've been a lot.
That was a cool spot.
Iceland's incredible.
It's really dark and cold a lot of the year.
It is. The summer's lovely.
Summer, for 1 month.
I don't quite know how I could deal with the winter. That 4 hours of daylight would be.
That would be hard. Iceland is beautiful. Yeah, there's so many great places in the world. And I've been lucky to be able to travel and see a lot of them. But I do really love where I live. I love staying home.
I understand. I understand. It is very, very nice here. The drive in yesterday down Trail Creek Road and through, it's unreal.
I bet you didn't think when you were driving down that super steep, gnarly mountain road, oh, I'm going to be riding up this tomorrow.
There's part of me yesterday, and I'm like, man, I hope this is kind of where we end up, especially on the drive before you crest over that pass.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty flat and really mellow, and there's really cool areas, kind of low, marshy looking stuff, and then big, open, vast plains. And so I was like, man, I hope that we end up out here. And then I saw that descent, and I was like,
We might be going up there.
Yeah, and sure enough, I made it about halfway.
That was awesome. No, you were super close. You were 3/4 of the way up.
Nice.
At that big rock where we stopped.
Nice. I'm good with what we got.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, a trail gnome decided to steal my front wheel out from under me.
I know. A little crashing, a little, you ejected from the bike. Kelly had one of those too when he was here, though.
I'm glad for that.
He had a full eject over the handlebars experience as well.
He's got a jacked up wrist. He's got to be careful.
Yeah, he kind of tucked and he was fine.
It's the move. So it's a really weird analogy, and I use it a lot for people, just talking about life and, chasing progress and whatever else it is. But it's like what I've noticed with people, and whether it's business people or anything else, is, man, what you really get good at is failing. Mm-hmm. And so I talk about that with, friends of mine when I was around the BMX scene and doing that growing up. Like what they're really good at is falling.
Yeah.
Because you can fall, or you've fallen enough that you recognize it early enough of how to bail and take less damage.
Yeah.
Or make a micro adjustment and get out of the bad situation. Instead of just dead sailoring and riding your handlebars into the ground, you get up and ride again.
Yeah.
Learn how to fail small enough that it doesn't crush everything that was going with it.
Yeah. I mean, we celebrate in sport, and even everywhere. You celebrate all the wins, all the good things that people have done. And like, oh, that person won this or did that or, wrote a book or got an Emmy Award. And what we don't talk about, and we should, like you're saying, is the path up into that was a series of many, 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 many failures.
Yeah, and decades that no one gives a shit.
Right. And nobody says, oh, that person failed. I mean, sometimes we talk about it like famous, writers or, novelists. Like, that book got turned down 457 times before, it got published. And I think that's important to recognize, though, because, I mean, we're in this place where we're expected to always, be perfect and, like, always win at everything. And it just... Right. It beats on your psyche if you're not like, no, this is a process.
It doesn't work that way. Like anyone who's had that level of success in anything has taken a beating along the route. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I don't believe that you're able to hold on to it.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that earns it fast, like you typically see it leave.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, just being prepared to fail small enough that, and two, failure is a far better teacher than success. You do something and it works out right, you're like, oh, I guess I'll do that again. Yeah. don't change the recipe. Things are perfect.
Well, good job failing and falling on your bike today.
Yeah, I'll pay for that one for the next couple days.
Yeah, you're going to be sore.
That's all right. Sore lets you know. And after getting out of chronic pain with the knee, at least the soreness I'll feel from this feels like a crash.
Yeah.
It's not the other pain.
Yeah, and it'll go away. It'll heal,
it'll be fine.
And you stretch it, move it.
Yep.
Call up Kelly, get some rolling. I've got one of his balls here you can roll on if you want.
Oh, I travel with them.
Yeah.
I travel with those. I travel with stretch bands, and I travel with a power dot is what it's called. It's a muscle stim unit I use, and it's nice. It Bluetooths to your phone, and so that controls the whole thing and tracks
very cool.
it. So really, I'll introduce you to the people. They're good folks.
Yeah. I mean, the muscle stim that I've used before, there's so many wires. It's such a big thing that you're doing at a PT's office.
This one, the whole thing's about the size of a Sony Walkman.
Oh, wow.
And so it's just pad, the pad, the detector, and 2 other pads. So, I mean, and then you can wear it under sweatpants traveling. So if you're on a plane.
There's so many tools now.
Boop, boop, boop.
It's so awesome. There's so many tools like that you can just have at home and do at home. And, they're small and packable and...
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, that and, from Kelly and those guys, I DIY'd a cold tub and used that for a while, which helped,
nice.
Especially with when my knee was bad. It was just one of the few things I knew that I could do that would turn it off.
Yeah, yeah.
And at least while I was in it, nothing hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
Major injuries? Anything you've...
No, knock on wood, I've been pretty good. I mean, I've got, a tight shoulder, a little bit of a this or that or the other, but they're all manageable.
No major reconstructions, no.
No, not yet. No reconstructions. No, I'm still whole, and I don't have any hardware in me yet.
It's good, good. All on OEM parts. It's nice.
Yeah.
The metal parts aren't so bad.
You have some?
Just the knee.
Yeah,
It's total
okay.
knee replacement about 14 months ago.
Awesome.
Was on the back end of 8 other knee surgeries that didn't go great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, cycling's great rehab for that.
It has been.
Yeah.
It has been,
That's
and
awesome.
I've been really, really happy with getting able to get those miles. And I'm lucky, too, because I really like bikes, and I liked them before all this.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy the nerdy part of the gear as much as I enjoy riding them. And that becomes the expensive problem.
Yeah.
So when you're getting ready for any of the expeditions, is it, how do you choose which rig, and how do you build it up different? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if you're going to go on a road trip in your car, you're going to go on a big backpacking trip or whatever, what you put in your backpack or even the pack that you carry is going to be carefully chosen based on what you're doing.
Sure.
And so, yeah, if I'm going to, an expedition in Alaska, I'm using a totally different bike that's got 5-inch wide tires.
Big fat tire bike.
Big fat tire bike, and it's got a lot of carrying capacity. It's got panniers I can put on the back because you have to take so much more stuff to stay warm.
Now, are you fully rigid on that bike?
That bike is fully rigid.
Yeah, I wonder how suspension handles that temperature change. It's got to just be another hassle.
It would be another hassle, and the bearings are going to freeze, all the lube and stuff in there is going to freeze. So there's all these things that you consider based on where you're going, what you're doing, how long you're going to be out. If I'm doing a bike packing adventure here in Idaho, I'm going to take a mountain bike that is a light suspension and carry some different things. But there's always bike tools, there's always maintenance stuff, there's always, the Garmin InReach is basically my satellite communicator because I'm alone a lot with no cell range.
Okay.
So I take a little bit of safety stuff.
So that allows you to call out if like an emergency?
I can message out,
nice.
with that. And it's just this little tiny satellite device.
Okay.
And
probably
so
good to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think for anybody going out on an adventure, you need fuel for your body. Your equipment needs to be in good working order. You need repair stuff in case the bike breaks, and you need safety and a bailout system and the right
water
clothing.
You have access to.
Yeah, and water. And are you taking a purifier, or can you get clean water on the way, or can you carry enough water? And so
Sawyer straws are a lifesaver.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of like you were saying with the bike gear. I really like the aspect of planning an expedition and really thinking about like, okay, I want to get my gear down to 20 pounds. Like, am I going to take that extra pair of socks? Nope. Am I going to take that extra food? Yes. Am I going to take, this or that? And this editing process of like taking what you need to be self-sufficient, but not taking too much to weigh you down.
It's a fun
pretty
stress.
Cool. Yeah. And it's definitely, the way I pack for an expedition, we have a pool table downstairs and I basically lay everything out on the pool table. And, I just start, adding things, taking things away, calculating how long batteries last, putting maps on the Garmin. Like, see, that stuff's really fun.
I'm so far away from like, well, this battery will last this long. I've never outridden my cycling computer.
Yeah, I have.
I'm sure. Carry multiple ones? Is that?
Or, a power pack, or depending on the ride, I have generator hubs on some of my...
the front hub that'll generate power up to the bag.
Yeah, and then I really just always carry a paper map, because the batteries never run out on that.
Never run out on paper map.
It's kind of
like
old
zombie
school.
Apocalypse. It's like having a sword. You don't have to reload a sword.
Totally. Yeah, my paper map is my sword, That's ultimate safety.
What about sleeping?
What's outside?
What's your sleeping setup?
Again, it depends on if it's cold or warm.
Sure.
But generally I'm, pretty minimal with just like a bivy sack and, I'm not carrying a tent on these things. It's pretty light and small. Even in Alaska, it was, I didn't take a tent. But you take a minus 40-degree sleeping bag. Whereas if it's warm, I might just take an emergency blanket and not even, and maybe a puffy coat, something, and just be pretty minimal. And I'm lucky. I've always been able to sleep anywhere. And so I'm happy laying down in the dirt and putting my head on top of my helmet as a pillow, and that works just fine.
Man, that's another thing that's recently kind of started popping up, and whether it's been little longer rides and starting to dip my toe into this endurance thing, or long road trips like this, camping 6 or 7 nights in a row.
Yeah.
man, your hierarchy of needs changes so much to like any mattress is fine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, amazing what we get picky about
Yeah.
in our homes when you're there all the time and comfortable.
Yeah.
But how much you enjoy that glass of water at the end of a ride, and it doesn't, or just rice and meat.
Mm-hmm.
It's about as simple of a meal as you
Tastes
can
so
get.
good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And that's because of the suffering that comes before it and this physical exertion that you earn it different.
Yeah, food and sleep and like a clean pair of socks, or, you know, those things become really precious.
Yeah, these weird luxuries, right?
Yeah, and or even like a grassy meadow. Like I ride all the time and be like, "Ooh, that'd be a good place to sleep," you know. And
Just stop, take a
just
nap.
think about it. But yeah, we don't. I mean, I love the comforts of home and all that, and you know, we have a nice mattress and everything.
Of
But
course, same.
I do think it's nice to shed some of those things every once in a while and go on an adventure. And then when you come home to it, then you appreciate it that much more.
Exactly.
What you do have.
And I think it also helps keep things minimal at home, like in a not chasing the Joneses type of way, because you're so aware that like I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I don't need 5 extra bedrooms in this house full of shit.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, we like a small place. You know, we're not planning on having kids, and so I don't need 4 extra bedrooms in a 3,500 square foot house. What do I do with all that? It's 3 rooms I don't ever go in, and I'm paying for it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
The best reason, you know, for us to have a guest room is that friends can come and drop in and stay, you know, because I did that for years. I was a wayward sort of living out of my car kind of traveler. And
feels good to get to share it.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah, you can come stay at my place. So it's nice to have enough room for guests.
So now that you've bike packed and you've done full expeditions and rock climbing and then rivering and done the dirtbag lifestyle, what's your favorite mode of transportation and camping? I
mean, the bike really is my favorite mode of transportation. I think that's why I've really honed in on it the last 15 years because, you know, I love being on foot and paddling, but they're limiting. They're slower.
They're slow.
Or you need a river, or you need, you know, whereas the bike really is, I can go anywhere in the world, even the snow in Alaska or to Southeast Asia in the jungle, and a bike can get me there. And so it has become really a catalyst for me to be able to feed that little kid's soul who wants to go exploring.
Right? Man, there's something cool about getting into adulthood and realizing you haven't totally bailed on 10-year-old you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you haven't just sacrificed everything and you're like, well, I go to this office every day and a job I don't really care about. And that's been the tough one for me. I had this kind of realization, I guess, when I turned 31. My dad had passed away and he had just turned 62. Passed away of pancreatic cancer. Was one of those things of 11 months diagnosis to dead. And I'm like, okay, so that's it. It's that fast. Like all these things you think about, like, well, I'll get to it. I'll do it. I'll do it when I retire. And like, there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
It's get to getting.
Yeah.
And
I like that, get to getting.
Well, I mean, it's that and this idea that people think about. I think I hear it so much like, well, in a different life I would do it. But the safety route that people take, to me, I don't find it safe. I find that the risk is that I just did everything like I was supposed to, and both roads eventually converge in the same place of me old and dead. And you know, that feeling people get toward the end of a trip where it's like, oh, I didn't get enough done. I didn't see enough. I didn't do this. I don't want that voice playing in my head when the time comes.
Yeah.
Like the whole life's the trip.
Yeah.
And I want to be like, okay, I'm tired. We can let go.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, we do have choices that we make every day. And, you know, I haven't chosen the easy path either. I could have made more money and, you know, in a different type of job. But I wouldn't have had the richness of the travel and the places and the people I've gotten to see.
There's something about people I've crossed paths with that have curated their life, right? That they didn't have to deal with the water cooler conversations. And they didn't make that deal of, well, I give you 5 days a week and I get 2. Or I'll give you 50 weeks and I get 2.
Yeah.
it's such a bad swap.
Yeah.
Just that exchange doesn't work for me
Not
anymore.
a good deal, yeah.
I can't do it. And I've worked a variety of jobs, everything from outside sales jobs to I've bounced and DJ'd in sketchy clubs and done a variety of things. And I've been fortunate enough that enough people like what I currently do that this is working. Don't know how long it gets to work, but we're going to give it hell.
Well, you must be meeting a need. You're meeting a need for people. And Kelly Starrett gave me that, business advice a long time ago. He said, don't try to sell people something. Try to solve a problem for them, or try to meet a need that you can help with. And I think that's, key to a successful entrepreneurial business is that it isn't about making money. It's about meeting somebody's need and providing a service.
Yeah, do a job that either gives people a shortcut or provides the thing that they can't do for themselves. And especially with training. For me, I don't know anything about cycling training. I know enough about training and linear progression of how to plan and block things out, but I don't quite understand, okay, so I need some interval days and I need some climb days and then I need this and then, okay, I also just need this. We're going to be in the saddle for 4 hours today. But actually programming it out hasn't been a thing I've really messed with. And so I would absolutely just pay to have that.
Well, and it's nice for somebody to say, no, do this way, in this order, and it works. Right. By the end of the 8 weeks, it's going to work because people a lot smarter than me, like my coach Tim, have, figured out the physiology of, like you said, this many hard days, this many easy days. This is how hard. And then you're like, okay, I'll do that. And so it does take the thinking away. It holds you accountable, and it's really nice. It's like taking your car to a mechanic. You trust that they've had the education. They're going to, they hear the problem. They're going to fix it.
That's a huge
Depends on the
difference.
mechanic that you get.
Sure.
But, everything's like that because you can't be an expert in everything. And we don't have time to, research it all and learn everything.
And somehow the trick, the further down the road you get, the more you realize the less you know about it. Even with strength and conditioning, I think that there would have been a period of time closer to 30. I just won a world championship or what have you, and I would have been a lot more comfortable saying I was an expert then than I am now.
Yeah.
You just keep realizing how little you don't know.
Yeah.
And my breadth of knowledge in strength and conditioning is an inch wide and a mile deep. I'm real good at that.
Yeah.
But as far as if somebody was like, oh, I'm a cross-country runner, I'd love for you to train me, I'm like, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah. Well, that's what's cool. There are experts in pretty much any field that you want. And
there's plenty of charlatans, too, but there's also experts.
Yeah.
And that's part of the discovery process. And you also realize that maybe they're not a charlatan, and maybe it's just not for you.
Yeah.
There's still plenty of good things that are going, and you just realize, this isn't the way I need to be coached or talked to or motivated or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And self-motivated people that don't need the push to get up in the morning.
I don't know. It's hard to do alone. I need a little posse of people to motivate me, because, some days I'm motivated, but some days I'm just definitely not. Or like today, that FTP test. If that wasn't, I don't want to do that.
They're awful.
But it's on the schedule, and I'm like, okay. And if I don't do it, my coach is going to say, well, why didn't you do it? Right. And all the people in this program are going to be like, we did our FTP test today. Why didn't you do it?
You have so many people to be accountable to. It's your name on the front of this.
Right. So I'm like, okay.
If it's okay that she skips workouts.
Yeah, but I was so happy at the end of it. As we were riding home, I'm like, I feel good. I got my work done. I feel like I achieved something today, and
rent's
makes
paid.
me happy. Right.
Paid the rent today, and you get to enjoy it, and just know that
money's in the bank.
Money's in the bank, and that's something, again, back to Kelly, right? Some of those things we've talked about a lot, and whether that was my knee or anything else is. I got credits to spend every day, but I got to make deposits of taking care of it and eating right and not, pushing too hard. There's always that razor thin line as an athlete that I can push there that's going to create the most adaptation for me to continue to make progress, but I know the pain that comes from overstepping it, and then that costs me 3 days.
Yeah.
So it's like, how many times can I tap that line without ever crossing it?
I like your analogy of, you have credits to spend, but you've got to make deposits.
You have to.
Yeah, I think so many people neglect that. They just train, and then, they're either getting worse or not getting fitter, and it's because they haven't put in the deposits, like you said.
It's what you do in the other 23, 22 hours of the day
Yeah.
that's the big performance enhancer for me, is what can I do to allow me to train hard again tomorrow?
Yeah.
And the more I can train hard, the better I will adapt and get better at this thing.
Yeah.
And so does that mean, okay, I need to go home and I need to get on compression boots. I need to go get a deep tissue massage. Like, it's that time that I'm beat up and I need 2 days off.
Yeah.
Like, I got to listen.
Yeah.
That listening to your body is one of those that comes with experience and some age. As I've tried to figure out. There's plenty of years that the only tool in my toolbox was a hammer.
Yeah.
And it's still a fight that I have to remind myself. I'm like, you got more than that now. You don't have to just keep reaching for the hammer, man. Like,
yeah,
there's other options.
Well, and there's, like we already talked about, so many great tools for mobility and, opening up, your joints and so much, easy nutrition that you can get to and eat well anywhere.
And supplementation. I mean, whether that's getting better at getting rehydrated or, for me, I'm 37 and testosterone's not great, so I can supplement that and get it from my doctor or whoever else. And I'm not competing in anything that would have a problem with that, and I don't have a moral issue, so let it have. And it's just, man, it's fun. I wonder if the adventure race thing, I don't know if I'll get back into. I ran a 5K while in Montana just for fun.
How'd that
one
go?
Morning.
And on your new knee.
On
That's
the new
amazing.
knee. It was really, really odd,
That's
honestly,
cool.
because I ran it and just left from a friend's house, ran it and ran, mile and a half out or 1.6 out and 1.6 back. And I got back and I got really emotional and I didn't expect it and just cried a bunch.
Because your knee didn't hurt?
Yeah. Or it hurt the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Or that this was a thing I'd written off.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't ever get to do this.
Yeah.
And I got to run. It's stealing back these little abilities.
That's
and
cool.
Stealing back this stuff. And just being so grateful that I'm able to. That I'm out of that pain.
Yeah.
That I'm out of when things were bad. When they're bad, they're really bad. I mean, I've talked about it on here a lot, and it was, I mean, they don't want to do total knee replacement on 36-year-olds. And so, the last conversation I had with my doctor about it, I said, my concerns are whether or not this surgery fixes my problem. And he was like, well, it should. And I'm like, I need you to give me more than that. And he's like, so everything we've done now has been eliminating. We have removed a piece to try to keep the engine running. We're now getting rid of all the bad parts and putting in new ones. The problem's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that adds up for me. That makes logical sense. And I was like, because if this is going to continue the way that it's been for this couple years, I'm at a point where I'd rather get rid of the leg. I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I'm miserable.
Wow.
And so, being able to go on a 5K,
oh, that's awesome.
It's big. It was a big moment, and getting to do that today, I'm just grateful that my body feels back on board.
Well, you asked me about fear earlier in this conversation, and I was scared of being cold in Alaska and this and that and the other, and I'm scared of some of the expeditions I do, but my biggest fear is losing mobility and not being able to do the things that bring me joy, like going on a 5K run.
Yeah.
Or riding my bike.
For me, freedom for me is options. And so the more those options just started getting whittled down. I went from 2016, the last time I competed in October, finishing second in the world at the Highland Games, and then by February I couldn't walk up and down stairs anymore. It became a point where if we were going to go to the store, it was a serious debate of whether or not I could handle that much walking.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I'm like, Kelly saw it really bad on the Grand Canyon. I I got involved on a hike that was far out of what I should have done
Yeah.
that day. I realized about 500 feet into this 5 or 6 mile hike that we were on that I had made a mistake.
Yeah.
And so I just grind it out. Just get to the water and get cold. At least there you can get cold in the river.
Yeah.
So it was like, get to the water, get cold, get to where pain meds are. And punch out. And then I limped around really poorly for the next 4 or 5 days on that trip. And yeah, getting out of those woods and losing that ability and that freedom to go and do, it's not okay for me. And so right now, while the body's working, I'm gonna go. I don't know how long it lasts.
Yeah.
But while it's working, we're gonna see what she can do.
It's so crazy they can just put in a new one.
They put in new hearts.
It's crazy
I
to
mean,
me.
I know a guy in the fitness industry, CT Fletcher. He got a new heart. That's crazy.
It is.
New knee makes sense. This is a mechanical part I can deal with.
Yeah.
A heart with like making muscles contract and running the rhythm of your body and like that level of essential.
That's crazy.
I mean, the only thing we basically like, they do lung transplants.
It's insane. I don't know. Yeah. Medicine is insane.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very, very happy for it.
Yeah.
You know, and the knee, I'm glad to have learned and got the perspective shift in my life that I got from all of it, but I was very ready to get out of those woods to be able to actually apply it.
Well, now you're running, you're riding.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah,
You got a scar, but that's it.
Yep. And lifting, I still love, but I'll never be the strongest in my life again. But that point was going to come anyway. So that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and I did it. I did everything I could have done in that sport, except I didn't compete at the Braemar Scottish Games in Scotland. It's the only competition I wanted to do and never did, and it was always like, there's no other contest around it. It's basically a trip to Scotland to just do this competition. And the competition isn't great. It's like they don't let you warm up. It's a big hullabaloo because the Queen comes to watch the game.
Okay.
And so it would have been cool to compete somewhere and Queen
Yeah.
Elizabeth is there, and like
Yeah.
if you win the caber, you get to go shake a hand and have a picture with her. And like that would have been a real cool, unique moment in life.
You're okay
Yeah.
if you didn't get to do that.
If
that's
the body
biggest-
works good
yeah.
enough later on that I can kind of throw, I'll
Yeah.
sneak into that contest and just get beat.
There you go.
And just be like, I did it. We're fine now.
There you go. Do a Queen's wave.
That's it. That's it, right? I always think about that, like how many different unique life experiences there are options for people, you know, in yours or versus mine, or think about hers.
Mm-hmm.
She's been the Queen of England for 65 years almost. My favorite way I heard it described is a buddy of mine, Scott, said, you know, when they did the Jubilee for her 60, like they big parade through London, and they spend like 6 months prior to this parade going through this route and cleaning it.
Wow.
Just pressure washing buildings
Yeah.
and repainting and doing everything so it looks spotless. And so it's like, well, as far as she knows, the whole world smells like fresh paint.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I would want her job.
No.
No.
It's a weird gig.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of expectation and pressure and not a lot of choice, like you said. We're lucky choice is a gift.
Right. And I think about those are like people have asked, you know, if you could have a podcast with anyone. And look, I don't think I'm the interviewer for it, but I would love to hear someone talk with Prince Harry or someone like that of like, what is your life, man? Like, have you ever been anywhere by yourself?
Yeah.
Or is there always a group of people that you're like, hey, I have to go to this, and then 6 dudes in cars follow you?
Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't be very
Like,
much
do
fun.
you have a checking account? What's it like? Have you ever just, like, he's never got that experience of saving up money to buy his first shitty car and the freedom that comes with it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of weird life things that are kind of taken. And, well, there's a lot of other really cool life things, too, that come with that.
Yeah.
That level of, maybe you don't miss it because you have helicopters. I don't know.
Right. Well, maybe you should shoot high and he's your next interviewee.
That'll be it. Let's just go right from here to Harry.
Yeah.
He's probably got time. He's moved to Canada.
It's a natural progression, isn't it?
Yes.
From me to Prince Harry. Yeah.
That adds up. So do you do a podcast, or do you do it just Zoom calls?
No, I don't have a podcast. For part of the RPI challenge, we're going to have twice weekly Zoom calls with pros and friends of mine, and
awesome.
that'll be recorded and kept on the membership site. But I haven't gone to the podcast official podcast level yet. I mean, I'm on a lot of them. I love the conversations. I think they're really fun. For me, I have to be careful not to spread myself too thin with work.
Of course.
As fun as a podcast might be, I sort of defer to people like you to have these cool conversations with.
Yeah, it's I've been very, very fortunate to get the guests that I've been able to get to communicate with, and I'm just excited to talk about people who've lived differently than me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So as I'm slowly making my way into bike packing and some other stuff, any recommendations on gear of that's a mistake?
I mean, it is really personal of how you're going to carry your equipment. Are you going to put it on the bike, on your back?
I'm trying to keep most of it off of me.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a good goal, is to keep, put weight onto the bike, but keeping it rideable. I think the biggest thing biggest mistake that people make is they don't spend time understanding the navigation. Because, it's just like in your car. If you're going to go bike packing, you kind of need to know how to read a map and plan a route and know where you're going and put it in your Garmin and then have a backup, because you are going into remote territory where, you're probably not going to be able to call on your cell phone. And even if you can get out a call, somebody's not going to be able to get to you for a little while.
It's the same reason I added a winch to the front of my truck. I've never used it.
Yeah.
And I've also I'm never so far off road that's what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm not trying to hardcore off road on the thing I'm trying to put 7,000 miles on in the next 6 weeks.
But it's a safety net for you, and it's responsibility taking care of yourself.
It's a get out of jail pass.
Remote. Yeah. So, I mean, that's for anyone who's going exploring and finding a little off the beaten path. I just take responsibility for, being your own first responder with your equipment, your car, yourself, because even if you get a mile from a trailhead, I mean, I'm an EMT, my husband is as well. It takes hours to get somebody out, even if they're a mile out on a trail. Rescue it takes a long time.
I have a buddy, Brian, told me a story on the podcast where was in Wyoming with another guy, had gone to do this kind of 30-mile trail run, moving pretty quick.
Yeah.
Ended up slipping in this, snowbank, and trashed his knee. Mm-hmm. And so, used both of his ski poles to splint it. His buddy left to go get help. And he's like, all right, I'm overnight.
Yeah. 18
hours later, they showed up with help.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, my plan is he's like, I slept with my knife on my chest.
Yeah.
Just isn't, ready. And because he's in bear territory. And he's like, as soon as sunrise hits, I'm going to start crawling.
Yeah.
Not just going to lay here.
That's where I think people don't understand the responsibility you're taking when you're going out into the wilderness or whatever, that you can't just call 911 or call your mom or whoever.
Right.
And so that's, the biggest thing I say to people is it's not necessarily which one piece of equipment you need. It's this attitude of self-sufficiency of, all the equipment you bring, and the attitude that you go that okay, I'm doing this on my own or with my partner, and we're going to get ourselves in, get ourselves out.
Yeah, good. The mindset I'm trying to switch to is that, and really switch to it, is being less focused on the there and more enjoying the journey, because that's really all it is.
Yeah.
The there is such a lie that we've been fed, because there isn't a there.
Well, I think that's to your point of all these people want to climb Everest because it's the tallest point in the world and they want to stand there and look there. But really their whole process of they could climb any mountain and have that same process. And so, well, that's a good point.
No one's written a book that's just describing the view from the top.
Right. Exactly. That's a very good point. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And yeah, it's all journey. And And there's so many cool, unique things on our planet. And chances are I won't get to explore many other ones if I'm really guessing in my lifetime. And there's amazing people and amazing cultures and amazing things to see here. I mean, the Grand Canyon alone, it's one of those things that doesn't make sense looking at it.
Yeah.
Your brain can't wrap around that size and volume.
Yeah. It's a really special place.
Yep. And man, I love what you do, and I mean I'm a fan, and you fire me up as we're rounding out a little over probably close to an hour and a half. Where can people find all your stuff who are interested and send people your way?
Rebecca Rusch, Rusch, on Instagram, website, my event, RebeccasPrivateIdaho.com. It's pretty easy to find me. And
this will be an excuse for me to come back up whenever you have the group again.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, at Private Idaho, we'll be able to have big group rides again. Mountain Bike Lao, hopefully I'll get to take people back there again. And, for now, we're meeting each other on different territory. And it was really nice to show you my home turf
I love it.
today.
I love it. And that's why I travel with the podcast.
Yeah.
I think the one-on-one talk is better, and I like talking to people in their realm.
Yeah. That's cool. It's a lot better than a studio. We're sitting on my backyard on my back deck here.
Sun's nice. The weather's beautiful. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for a great ride and a good chat.
Thank you.